The message came at 3 in the morning. Admiral Kang Tae-ho was sleeping in his quarters when the alarm pulled him from his dreams. He had been dreaming of his daughter, of her small hands reaching up to him when she was just a child. Now she was grown, married, with children of her own. But in his dreams, she was always small. He walked to the command center of the station. His bones ached. He was 57 years old, and he had spent 30 of those years in space. The cold of the void had settled into his joints long ago. "What is it?" he asked. Lieutenant Wu pressed a button. The room filled with sound. It was not words at first. It was screaming, then crying. Then, slowly, words formed in the universal translator. A voice spoke. It was breaking apart with fear. "Please, anyone who can hear this. They are killing us. The Drath have come. They are burning our cities. They are taking our children. Please, we beg you. Help us. Please help us." The voice belonged to a Valari. Tae-ho knew the Valari well. They were tall beings, thin as young trees, with skin the color of morning sky. They had been the first aliens to welcome humanity into the galaxy. They had taught humans how to travel between stars. They had asked for nothing in return. They were scholars, healers. They had never built a single weapon, and now they were dying. Tae-ho played the message again and again. Each time, the screaming cut deeper into his heart. "Send this to Earth," he said quietly. "Send it to everyone." The Galactic Assembly received the message too. They were the great council of all spacefaring species. Hundreds of worlds united under one government. Surely they would act. They did not. The Drath Dominion was too powerful, they said. Too dangerous. The Valari were unfortunate, but war with the Drath would cost millions of lives. It was better to be practical. It was better to be safe. Tae-ho listened to their excuses and felt something cold grow in his chest. It was not fear. It was rage. On Earth, the United Council gathered in the Great Hall in Geneva. Presidents and generals, scientists and diplomats. They watched the message from the Valari. They heard the screaming. They saw the images of burning cities, of bodies in the streets, of children being dragged away in chains. Dr. Yuna stood before them. She was 43 years old. She had spent 5 years living among the Valari, studying their medicine, learning their songs. She had a friend there named Ars. Ars had taught her to see beauty in small things, in the way light moved through water, in the sound of wind through leaves. Ars had sent her a personal message. "Yuna," Ars said in the recording. Her voice was calm, but her hands were shaking. "They are at the gates. I can hear them breaking through. I wanted to tell you that I am grateful. For your friendship. For everything you taught me about your people. I thought humans were strange when I first met you. So loud, so emotional, so full of fire. But I understand now. That fire is not weakness. It is love. Please, Yuna, tell your people about us. Tell them we were here. Tell them we mattered." The recording ended. Dr. Yuna was crying. She did not try to hide it. The council debated for 6 hours. Some said humanity should stay out of it. The Drath were too strong. The risk was too great. Earth had colonies to protect, families to keep safe. Why should humans die for aliens they barely knew? Others disagreed. They spoke of duty, of honor, of the debt humanity owed to the Valari. Then President Han Soo-bin stood up. She was 61 years old. Her hair was gray. Her face was lined with the weight of hard decisions. 20 years ago, she had lost her daughter in the Seoul incident. A terrorist attack. Fire and screaming and tiny hands reaching up. She knew what it felt like to watch children die while others did nothing. "I have heard enough," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it filled the room. We can talk about risk. We can talk about politics. We can talk about what is smart and what is safe. But let me ask you something. If it was your children screaming in that message, would you want the galaxy to debate? Would you want them to calculate the cost? Or would you want someone, anyone, to come and save them? No one spoke. We did not reach the stars to become cowards, she said. We did not build these ships to watch others burn. The Valari helped us when we were young and lost. They asked for nothing. And now they are dying. What does it say about us if we turn away? What does it say about humanity? She looked around the room. At the generals. At the diplomats. At the scared faces and the uncertain hearts. Prepare the fleet, she said. We are going to war. Within 2 days, humanity declared war on the Drath Dominion. It was the first time in galactic history that any species had willingly challenged their power. The other aliens thought humans were insane. Admiral Taeho received the orders on his station. He read them 3 times to make sure he understood. Then he smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had been waiting his whole life for this moment. A smile that said, finally. Finally, we get to show them who we really are. He walked to the command center and looked at his crew. Young faces. Old faces. Men and women who had chosen to serve. They did not know what was coming. They did not know how much it would cost, but they knew why they were fighting. Set course for Valari Prime, Taeho said. Maximum speed. The ships began to move. 200 vessels. The first wave of humanity's answer dot in the message. The Valari had begged for help, and humanity had answered. The galaxy had never seen humans fight. For 30 years, humanity had been peaceful. They traded. They talked. They built schools and hospitals on distant worlds. The other species thought they understood humans. They thought humans were soft, friendly, a little strange perhaps with their loud voices and their strange music and their habit of hugging each other, but harmless. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Fleet Commander Park Jin-soo stood on the bridge of his ship, the Dawn of Seoul. He was 44 years old. He had black hair cut short and eyes that never seemed to blink. He had trained his whole career for a war that everyone told him would never come. Now it had come dot around him. 200 ships moved through space. They were not beautiful ships. The aliens built vessels like works of art, with smooth curves and soft lights. Human ships were different. They were angular, heavy, covered in weapons. They looked like they had been built by people who expected to fight and did not care about looking pretty while doing it. The Drath fleet was waiting for them at Valari Prime. 600 ships, 3 times the human numbers. The Drath commander sent a message. His face appeared on every screen. He was a large being, covered in gray scales, with teeth like broken glass. Humans, he said, you are foolish to come here. You are young. You are weak. You do not understand war. Turn back now, and we will let you live. Stay, and we will destroy you. Jin-soo looked at the face on the screen. He thought about the Valari dying on the planet below. He thought about the screaming in the message. He thought about his grandfather, who had fought in the last Earth War, who had told him that some things were worth dying for. No, Jin-soo said. The Drath commander laughed. Then you choose death. We choose war, Jin-soo said. You should not have hurt our friends. The battle began. What happened next would be talked about for 1,000 years. The Drath expected humans to fight like other species, to be careful, to pull back when things got dangerous, to value survival above all else. Humans did not fight like that. The human ships charged forward, not in careful formations, but in wild, aggressive waves. They closed the distance so fast that the Drath barely had time to react. At close range, the human weapons were devastating. Missiles and railguns and plasma cannons that tore through Drath, armor like paper. And when the ships were too damaged to fight, the humans did something insane. They rammed them. The Dawn of Sol took heavy damage in the first hour. 3 of her engines were destroyed. Half her weapons were gone. Any other species would have retreated. Jinsu ordered his ship forward, straight at the Drath command vessel. "Sir," his second officer said, his voice shaking, "we cannot survive a direct collision." "I know," Jinsu said, "but they cannot either." At the last moment, he fired everything his ship had left, every missile, every gun. The Drath ship exploded. The Dawn of Sol flew through the fire and came out the other side, broken and burning, but alive, on the planet. Below, the Valari watched the sky light up with explosions. They had been waiting to die. Now they were watching angels fall from heaven. Lieutenant Hana led the boarding teams. She was 26 years old. She was small, barely over 160 centimeters tall. She weighed 60 kilograms. The Drath warriors were twice her size. With claws that could tear through metal. She killed 47 of them. Her team landed on the Drath flagship. The corridors were dark and full of enemies. Hana moved through them like a ghost. Her rifle ran out of ammunition. She used her pistol. Her pistol ran out. She used her knife. Her knife broke. She used her hands. The Drath had never seen anything like it. They were warriors. They had conquered 12 worlds. They had never met a species that fought with such fury, such complete refusal to stop. Hana found the reactor room. Most of her team was dead. She had 3 soldiers left. She planted the bomb, set the timer, and ran. The flagship exploded behind her. She made it to the escape pod with 2 seconds to spare. When they pulled her out of the pod, she was covered in blood. Most of it was not hers. She looked at the medic who was trying to treat her wounds and said, "Did we win?" "Yes," the medic said. "We won." Hana closed her eyes. "Good. Tell the others. Tell them the Valari are safe." Then she passed out. The battle lasted 8 hours. When it was over, the Drath had lost 847 ships. Humanity had lost 89. The Valari homeworld was saved. The galaxy watched in shock. The Galactic Assembly had recordings of the battle. They watched humans ram their ships into enemies. They watched boarding teams fight to the last soldier. They watched pilots fly into certain death with smiles on their faces. They did not understand. One alien diplomat asked a human ambassador, "Why? Why do you fight like this? Do you not fear death?" The ambassador was an old man named Kang. He was Taeho's younger brother. He thought for a long moment before answering. "We fear death," he said. "We fear it very much, but we fear something else more. We fear living in a universe where the innocent cry for help and no one comes. We fear being the kind of people who hear children screaming and look away. We would rather die fighting for something good than live knowing we did nothing." The diplomat did not understand. His species had survived for 10,000 years by being careful, by avoiding conflict, by choosing safety over risk. But watching the recordings of the battle, he began to feel something strange, something he had not felt in a very long time. He felt hope. If these humans, these small, soft, emotional beings, could stand against the Drath and win, then perhaps the universe was not as dark as he had thought. Perhaps there was still room for heroes. On Valari Prime, the survivors came out of their hiding places. They looked up at the sky, where human ships were descending with food and medicine and soldiers to protect them. A young Valari child asked her mother, "Who are they?" Her mother was crying, but she was smiling too. "They are humans," she said. "They came to save us. Why?" The child asked. The mother thought about it. She did not really understand humans. No one did. "Because that is who they are," she said finally. "They hear someone crying, and they cannot look away. The child watched the ships land. Strange beings in heavy armor stepped out. They were different from the Valari. Shorter, heavier, with eyes that burned with something fierce and beautiful. One of them saw the child watching. He knelt down so they were at the same height. He took off his helmet. He had a kind face, a tired face. The face of someone who had seen terrible things, but had not let them make him hard. "Hey," he said softly. "You are safe now. No one is going to hurt you anymore. I promise." The child did not understand his words, but she understood his voice. She understood the gentleness in his eyes. She reached out and took his hand, and in that moment, everything changed. The rescue of Valari Prime was only the beginning. The Drath Dominion controlled 11 worlds. On each world, millions of innocent beings lived in chains. They worked in mines and factories. They died in camps. They had been slaves for so long that some of them had forgotten what freedom meant. President Han Subin gathered her generals in the war room. Maps covered the walls. 11 stars. 11 prisons. "We could stop here," one advisor said. "We saved the Valari. We made our point. The Drath will not bother us now." "And what about the others?" Subin asked. "What about the Chell on Thrace 4? What about the Morath and Kelos? Do we tell them that we only had enough courage for one rescue?" No one answered. "We did not come here to save one world," she said. "We came to end an empire." General Yang Daesung took command of the campaign. He was 73 years old. His hair was white. His hand shook when he held a cup. But his mind was sharp as a blade, and his voice could make young soldiers stand straighter just by speaking. Before the war started, he had been a farmer. Before that, he had been a soldier in the last Earth War. He had seen what happened when evil was allowed to grow unchecked. He had promised himself that if he ever had the chance to stop it, he would not hesitate. Now he had the chance. "War is not a game," he told his officers. "It is not an adventure. It is the worst thing that beings can do to each other. But sometimes it is necessary. When someone is hurting the innocent, when they will not stop, when talking and begging and pleading have failed, then we must act. We fight not because we love war, but because we love peace. And peace cannot exist while the Drath keep others in chains." The campaign lasted 3 years. Captain Mina led the liberation of Thrace 4. The Chell were small beings with hard shells, like insects. They had been slaves for 100 years. The Drath used them in the mines, digging for precious metals in tunnels so small that only Chell could fit inside. Many died there. The Drath did not care. There were always more Chell. When Mina's forces landed, the Drath governor tried to stop them. He threatened to kill the slaves if the humans did not leave. He gathered 1,000 Chell children and put weapons to their heads. Mina did not retreat. She did not negotiate. She sent her best snipers forward. 12 Drath guards died in 12 seconds. Then she led the charge herself, breaking through the governor's defenses like a hammer through glass. She found the governor hiding behind a wall of children. He was screaming that she would never take him alive. "I know," Mina said. She shot him herself. Later, the Chell asked why she had taken such a risk. The children could have been killed. Her soldiers could have died. They were going to die anyway, Mina said. The Drath never let hostages go. We knew that. The only way to save them was to be faster, to be better. So we were. The Chell built a statue of her. It stands in their capital to this day. Commander WarHFY led the siege of Kethros. Kethros was the heart of the Drath war machine. Factories covered the entire planet. They built ships and weapons day and night. Millions of slaves worked there, dying of exhaustion and hunger so the Drath could keep fighting. Hyan surrounded the planet with his fleet. He cut off all supplies. The Drath commander sent a message offering surrender, "We will give you the military bases," the commander said. "We will stop fighting. But the slaves stay. They are our property." Hyan looked at the message for a long time. Then he looked at the images from the surface. The factories. The camps. The bodies piled beside the roads. He ordered the bombardment to continue. Took 6 months, but Kethros fell. The slaves were freed. Many of them did not know what to do. They had never made their own choices. Hyan stayed behind with a team of volunteers to help them rebuild. "Freedom is not something you give once," he wrote in his journal. "It is something you teach. It takes time, but it is worth it." Sergeant Gia became a legend on Kelos. The Morith were large beings, strong and proud. Once they had been warriors. The Drath had broken them. They made the Morith fight each other for entertainment. They killed any Morith who showed courage. When the humans came, the Drath launched a counterattack. They sent an armored division through the mountains to reach the refugee camps where 40,000 Morith civilians were hiding. There was only one pass through the mountains. Gia held it. She had 12 soldiers. The Drath had 300 tanks. Anyone could see it was impossible. Anyone could see they would all die. Gia did not care about impossible. For 18 hours, she and her team fought. They used everything they had: rockets, grenades, mines. When they ran out of ammunition, they rolled boulders down the slopes. When they ran out of boulders, they used their bare hands. The Drath could not believe it. They had crushed armies. They had conquered worlds. And now they were being stopped by 12 humans who refused to run. By the time reinforcements arrived, Gia was alone. She was sitting on a rock, surrounded by the wreckage of 200 Drath tanks. Her armor was destroyed. Her weapons were empty. She had been fighting with a combat knife when the last tank finally stopped. The Morith, watching from the camps, thought she was a spirit, a goddess of war sent to save them. She was not a goddess. She was a human. She was tired and hurt, and she missed her family. But she had held the pass. 40,000 lives saved. Because one woman refused to take a single step backward. The Morith built a statue of her too. It shows her standing on the mountain, knife in hand, looking down at the valley below. On the base, they carved words in their language and in human speech. She stood when all others would have run. The war ground on. World after world fell to the human advance. The Drath threw everything they had at the invaders. It was not enough. They did not understand what they were fighting. They had conquered species before. They knew how to break soldiers, how to make them afraid, how to make them give up. But humans did not break. They did not give up. They took terrible losses and kept coming. They buried their dead and kept fighting. They cried for their fallen friends and then picked up their weapons and charged again. Why? A captured Drath commander asked. Why do you keep fighting? What do you want? We could give you wealth, territory, power. Why do you refuse? The human officer questioning him thought about it. We do not want your wealth, he said finally. We do not want your territory. We want you to stop hurting people. That is all. That is everything. And we will not stop until you do. The Drath commander looked at him for a long time. You are insane, he said. Maybe, the human replied. But we are winning. He was right. They were winning, and the galaxy was watching. War has a price. Victory does not come free. Dr. Yoon kept the records. She was the chief medical officer of the fleet, and it was her job to count the dead. Every night, she updated her files. Every morning, the numbers were higher. 2 million soldiers died in the campaign. 2 million sons and daughters. 2 million people who had homes and families and dreams. Another 4 million were wounded. Some lost limbs. Some lost eyes. Some lost their minds in the darkness between stars. The cost was staggering. But humanity kept paying. Admiral Kang Tae-ho led from the front. He always had. He said that a commander who asked others to die should be willing to die himself. His officers begged him to stay back, to command from safety. He refused. "If I hide while my soldiers fight," he said, "what kind of leader am I?" The final battle was at Drath Prime, the enemy homeworld, the heart of their empire. The Drath had gathered every ship they had left. 400 vessels, crewed by their best warriors. They knew this was the end. If they lost here, they lost everything. Tae-ho had 300 ships. His crews were exhausted. They had been fighting for 3 years without rest. Many of them had lost friends, brothers, sisters. Some of them had lost hope. He spoke to them before the battle. "I know you are tired," he said. His voice was rough. He had not slept in 2 days. "I know you have given everything. I know you want to go home. I want to go home too. I have a daughter on Earth. She has children now. I have never met them. I look at their pictures, and I wonder what their voices sound like." He paused. The silence stretched across 100 ships. "But we cannot go home yet. There are still slaves on that world. There are still children in chains. If we stop now, if we give up, everything we sacrificed means nothing. So I'm asking you for one more battle. One more push. Help me finish this. Help me keep our promise." No one spoke, but across the fleet, lights began to blink. One by one, then dozens, then hundreds. It was the signal for ready. It was the answer of soldiers who had nothing left to give, but were giving it anyway. "Thank you," Tae-ho said softly. "Let's end this." The Battle of Drath Prime lasted 16 hours. It was the bloodiest day in human history. Ships burned. Soldiers died. The void filled with fire and screaming. Tae-ho commanded from the front of the line, his ship leading the charge. The Drath threw everything at him: missiles, plasma, suicide attacks. His vessel took hit after hit. Fires broke out on every deck. Hull breaches opened like wounds. He did not pull back. "Forward," he ordered. "Keep moving forward." In the final hour, a Drath warship rammed his bridge. The collision tore through the command center. Tae-ho was thrown across the room. His arm was broken. His ribs were cracked. Blood ran down his face. He pulled himself to the communication console. His fingers left red marks on the controls. "All ships," he said. His voice was fading. "Continue the attack. Do not stop. We are almost there." He switched to a private channel. His daughter's face appeared on the screen. She was crying. "Appa," she said. It was what she had called him as a child. "Father." "I am sorry," he said. "Tell them I did what was right. Tell the children about me. Tell them their grandfather helped save a galaxy." "Appa, please. I love you," he said. "I always loved you. Be strong." The connection cut out. Minutes later, his ship exploded, but the battle was won. The Drath fleet was destroyed. The war was over. The news reached Earth 3 days later. Lieutenant Hana was in a hospital when she heard. She had been wounded in an earlier battle. She was missing her left arm and 3 fingers on her right hand. She had killed so many enemies that she had lost count. She was 29 years old, and she felt like 100. When they told her about Tae-ho, she did not cry. She had used up all her tears years ago. "Did we win?" she asked. "Yes," the Drath surrendered. "It is over." "Good," she said. Then it meant something. All of it. She looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, 11 worlds were free. 100 billion beings would grow up without chains. Children would never know the sound of Drath boots in their streets. It meant something. she said again, quieter this time, like she was trying to convince herself. General Yang Dae-soon returned home after the war. He went back to his family farm in Gangwon province. He grew vegetables. He watched the sunrise. He tried to forget the things he had seen, but he could not forget the dead. Every night, he dreamed of them. The soldiers who had followed his orders into fire. The young faces that would never grow old. He started writing letters, one letter for every soldier who died under his command. 847,000 letters. He wrote their names. He told their families what their sacrifice meant. He said he was sorry he could not bring them home. It took him 15 years to finish. He died 3 months after writing the last letter. Some said the work kept him alive. Some said it was the only thing that let him rest. President Han Soo-bin faced questions when the war ended. Some people said she had been wrong. They said humanity had no business fighting other species' wars. They said too many had died for strangers. She gave her answer in her final speech. They asked me why we sacrificed so much, she said. They say it was not our fight. They say the Valari and the Chel and the Morith are not our people. They ask what we gained. She paused. The cameras were recording every word. I will tell you what we gained. We gained the right to look at ourselves in the mirror. We gained the knowledge that when innocent beings cried out in the darkness, we answered. We gained the proof that humanity is not just another species scratching for survival. We are more than that. We are better than that. Her voice grew stronger. Some ask, what is the purpose of power if not to keep ourselves safe? I asked them, what is the purpose of safety if not to protect the weak? What is the meaning of strength if we only use it for ourselves? Our ancestors died so that their children could live in freedom. Now we have passed that gift to others. We have made the universe a little less cruel, a little more kind. She looked at the camera, at the millions watching. We are not defined by what we keep. We are defined by what we give. And we gave everything. That is who we are. That is who we will always be. The war was over. Humanity had won. But in the quiet moments, in the empty rooms and the lonely nights, the survivors wondered if the price had been too high. Hannah founded a program for veterans. She called it Warriors Rest. She helped soldiers learn to live again after the things they had seen and done. We broke ourselves to save others, she told them. Now we must learn to heal. Some did heal. Some never did. But all of them remembered. They remembered why they fought. They remembered what they saved. And when the nightmares came, when the ghosts of the fallen whispered in the dark, they told themselves it was worth it. It had to be worth it. Because if it was not, then everything they lost was just gone, and that was a thought too terrible to bear. 50 years had passed since the war ended. The galaxy was different now. Better. The Galactic Assembly had been rebuilt around new ideas. Ideas that humans had written. Ideas about freedom and dignity, and the right of every being to live without chains. They called it the Liberation Accords. Every species in the galaxy had signed it. It said that no world could be conquered. No people could be enslaved. If anyone tried, everyone would stand against them together. Humanity had not asked to lead. But leadership had found them anyway. Species that once thought humans were young and foolish now sent their children to Earth to learn. Human doctors worked in hospitals on 100 worlds. Human teachers opened schools. Human soldiers trained armies to defend the free. But the greatest change was not in politics or power. It was in the hearts of those who had been saved. On Valari Prime, an entire generation had grown up in peace. They called it Liberation Day. Every year, on the anniversary of the human ships appearing in their sky, the Valari celebrated. They lit candles for the dead. They told stories of the angels who came from beyond the stars. This year, was the 50th anniversary. Representatives from every species humanity had freed traveled to Velari Prime for the ceremony. The Chell came with their shells polished bright. The Morath came with their best warriors in ceremonial armor. A dozen other species filled the great plaza, united by a shared memory. The speaker was Ambassador Park Sori. She was Jinsu's granddaughter. Her grandfather had died 10 years after the war, peacefully in his sleep. He had lived long enough to see his grandchildren born. He had told them stories about the battles he fought, the friends he lost, the world he helped save. Sor had grown up with those stories. They shaped her. They made her want to serve, just as her grandfather had served. Now she stood before the gathered thousands, looking out at faces of every shape and color. Beings who breathed different air, who saw different light, who had nothing in common except one thing. They had all been saved by humans. 50 years ago, Sora said, my grandfather flew into this system with 200 ships. He was scared. All of them were scared. They were flying toward an enemy 3 times their size, with no guarantee of victory, no promise of survival. Many of them knew they would die. She paused. They came anyway. Do you know why? The crowd was silent. Because they heard you crying. That is all. They heard you crying in the dark, and they could not turn away. It is a strange thing, this human nature of ours. We cannot ignore suffering. We cannot see someone hurting and do nothing. It makes us foolish sometimes. It makes us rush into danger when wisdom would say to stay safe. She smiled. It was a sad smile, a proud smile, but it also makes us brave. It makes us fight for strangers. It makes us die for people we have never met. My grandfather used to say that humans are not special because we are strong. Many species are strong. We are not special because we are smart. Many species are smart. We are special because when we hear someone crying, we cannot look away. She looked at the crowd, at the Velari with their sky-colored skin, at the Chell with their hard shells, at the Morath with their proud faces, all of them watching her, all of them listening. It is our blessing and our curse. This inability to ignore pain. The Drath thought it made us weak. They thought our compassion was something to be used against us. They were wrong. It made us relentless. It made us unstoppable. It made us fight when every reasonable voice said to give up. Her voice grew stronger. 50 years ago, you begged for help. We answered. And I stand here today to tell you something. We would do it again. 1,000 times. 1,000,000 times. If you called out tomorrow, we would come. That is not a policy. That is not a strategy. That is who we are. That is what it means to be human. She stepped back from the platform. You are our family now. All of you. We did not choose you, and you did not choose us. But we are bound together by blood and sacrifice. By the soldiers who died so that you could live. By the children who grew up without parents so that your children could grow up free. That bond can never be broken. She raised her hand. To the fallen. To the ones who gave everything. To my grandfather and all the others who flew into the fire because they heard someone crying. We remember you. We honor you. And we promise to be worthy of what you gave. Across the plaza, lights began to rise. Candles lifted by thousands of hands. The lights spread like stars being born, a galaxy of flames floating upward into the evening sky. In the crowd. An old Velari watched with tears streaming down her face. Her name was Lyra. She had been a child when the Drath came. She remembered hiding in the basement while the city burned above. She remembered the screaming. She remembered being certain she was going to die. And then she remembered the sound of human ships breaking through the clouds. The strangest, most beautiful sound she had ever heard. She had spent her whole life since then wondering why. Why had they come? Why had they risked everything for strangers? She had read books and studied history and asked every human she met. She never got an answer that satisfied her. But standing here now, watching the candles rise, she thought maybe she finally understood that it was not logic. It was not strategy. It was something deeper. Something that lived in the human heart like fire lives in the sun. They could not help themselves. They could not hear suffering and do nothing. It was who they were, and because of that, she was alive. Her children were alive. Her grandchildren would grow up in a galaxy where the Drath were just a story, a nightmare from long ago, all because some strange beings from a distant star could not turn away from a cry for help. Lyra lifted her candle higher. Around her, beings of every species did the same. The plaza glowed like dawn. Ambassador Sora watched from the stage. She saw the lights rising. She saw the faces. She thought of her grandfather, of the stories he told, of the weight in his eyes when he spoke of the friends he lost. "I hope you can see this," she whispered. "I hope you know it was worth it." The candles floated higher. The crowd began to sing, 100 different songs in 100 different languages, all rising together into the night. On the edge of the plaza, a group of human veterans stood watching. They were old now. Gray hair, lined faces, bodies broken by old wounds that never fully healed. One of them had served under Admiral Teho. One had fought beside Lieutenant Hana. One had held a line at Kelos with Sergeant Gia. They did not speak. They did not need to. They just stood together and watched the lights rise. They had been young once. They had been scared. They had done terrible things and seen terrible things and lost friends they still dreamed about. But looking at the plaza, full of free beings, at the children running through the crowd, at the future spreading out before them like an endless sky, they knew it was worth it. All of it. Every battle, every scar, every name carved on the memorials. Worth it. The candles continued to rise. The songs continued to swell. And across the galaxy, on 100 different worlds, beings looked up at the stars and remembered. They remembered the ships that came out of nowhere. They remembered the soldiers who fought and died. They remembered the day when everything changed. They begged for help, and humanity had answered. Not with words, not with promises, with total war, with everything they had. Because that is what humans do. That is who they are, and that is who they will always be.